Today talking about food sensitivity testing. So it is super controversial. However, I'll cover that probably in another video. Today I just want to talk to you about the test itself and what information it provides. I absolutely love this test and I've had amazing results with it, and I've used it for the past 5 years, and the company that I go with is Rocky Mountain. The feedback that I've got from patients and from using this myself is that some of the stuff that comes back on this you would never guess in a million years, because it's a supposedly healthy food. For example, recently I've had quite a few people that have almonds come up, and almonds is part of that superfood. So when somebody says, well, I thought almonds were healthy for me, but then it turns out that it ends up being red on their test, then they're shocked because they thought that they were doing something good for their health. And it turns out that it was having an inflammatory impact on their body. So how you read this test is, I have a sample report here, and how you read it is that green is good, everything's fine with it, no issues. Yellow is borderline, meaning that if you have it, you may or may not be okay, you may or may not experience any symptoms, but that doesn't mean that it's not having an impact on your system. And red is aim to avoid. So if I have someone, for example, that has been really sick for a long period of time without any answers, so they just feel really tired, they feel run down, they get headaches every so often, their sleep is poor, they feel super stressed out. This test helps to narrow down what is going on. Because sometimes blood tests, getting routine blood work doesn't give people the answers that they're looking for. And we are incredibly impacted by what we put into our bodies. So that is part of the reason why I love this test, and why I use it as the base of creating custom meal plans for people. So if we're getting right into it, so as you can see, it's divided up into categories. So first one being dairy and egg. And for this particular person, they had egg white and milk in the yellow categories. And so then across the board here, dairy ended up being red. They had a couple instances of that as well. And the thing is that some of these overlap, right? So you have casein and you have cow's milk, goat's milk, sheep's milk. These are all going to have some level of casein in it. So when you do have that overlap, it does mean like you need to be very cautious with it. The one thing I should mention is that the numbers you can't really compare, numbers that are from, cow's milk to goat milk, for example. They all have their own range that they're set on. So a ton of people have been tested, and then depending on where you fall on that spectrum for that particular food item, that's where that value comes from. So you can't compare item to item, you can only compare within the item itself. So then from there, the question I get a lot too is actually egg white is often a flag, whether it be yellow or red for people. And egg yolk is usually not actually a culprit. So if people are like, well, can I just, split up the eggs and just eat the egg yolk? It's not ideal, because you're still getting exposed to the egg white no matter how careful you are at dividing it up. Then in the grain section, so as I say, this is a nice format because you really just have a quick reference going back to it. Gliadin is the technical term for gluten, so they're one and the same. Then, there's other grains here to be aware of. Barley is a little bit tricky because barley can be found in rice syrup, in sausage, in sauces, in soup mixes. So you do need to be cautious with that one if it happens to be a flag for you. Then you have the gluten-free grains. And what I like about this test is that it does test a wide variety of items. So this particular one that I'm showing you here is one that has 200 or more food items on it. So it really does cover a large gamut of what's going on. And then in the fruit, not a whole heck of a lot for this sample person. Orange does tend to come up a lot, and especially with people that have any sort of like urinary concerns, citrus does tend to be an issue for them. And that's just the fruit continued there. Veggies, honestly, after repeated testing with different people, potato, peppers, tomato tend to be hit up as flags. And they're all in the same family. They're in the, oh gosh, I'm blanking on what the name is now. The nightshade family, right? So essentially it is a good idea just to be aware. Like if you've got numerous nightshades coming up for you as a flag, then it's just good to be aware of, okay, if I've got potato and tomato, still maybe be cautious with eggplant. And moving down here, seafood, not typically a lot of flags with seafood. Sometimes the wakame shows up. Other times oyster I've seen a few times. And I should mention that, you know, people that have seashell allergies don't, or shellfish allergies, don't necessarily have it show up on this test, because this is not an IgE test, this is an IgG test. So those are two different aspects of the immune system. So may not come up as a flag here. Sometimes, you know, they both coincide and other times they don't. Meat, again, not often that there are flags here. I have seen lamb a few times. I've seen ox a few times. Those are the only ones I can think of off the top of my head. The herbs and spices is a really nice feature because often people have mustard allergies, which is pretty common, and that's down here. Some of the, I think ginkgo, yeah, ginkgo's on here as well, and that one tends to be a flag. And these are things that, you know, you wouldn't even think of that are in sauces or that you use all the time that may be irritating you in one way or the other. Nuts and seeds, for this person, they do have a few flags on here, and it is fairly common. So just another thing to be aware of. Like, for example, this person has almond, which again is something that, you know, we're told is healthy, that you should eat it, you know, have a handful of almonds. It's good for protein, etc. But if it tends to be a flag for you, if you end up cutting it out, you will start to see the difference in how you feel. Then in the miscellaneous, again, another category that I do like because it has things that people use all the time. So for example, coffee, cane sugar, honey, you know, things that you use on a daily basis without even thinking of, and there it is. The one that people are typically asking questions about, and that I've seen a lot of flags come up as of late, is the agar and the kola nut, which are preservatives, and they aren't necessarily listed on ingredient lists. Then they can be in virtually any packaged item without having to be on the ingredient list. Some of the newer companies are starting to put it on, which is amazing. But there are a lot of companies that still are not putting it on there. So just another thing to be aware of. And then once you've gone through this whole, section by section, further down there's an explanation of what each item means, and different explanations for you that you can have a peek at. And then at the end is the summary of all of your red items, all of your yellow items, and all the green, which is really nice. Just a quick reference that people can tack up on their fridge or bring with them to the grocery store, because a lot of these things are things that you might use often. Some of them you might not use at all. I have some people that, ox came up on their test and they have never had it or they don't like it, so they're not, sad about not eating it anymore. But typically what I have people do is remove the yellow and red items for at least 3 weeks, so we get a baseline of how they're feeling. And we're not just looking at digestive concerns, we're looking at, mood, sleep, weight, skin, headaches, and then, the digestive stuff like, diarrhea, constipation, bloating, gas, acid reflux, etc. These are all things that can be impacted by foods and by eating the foods that are not agreeing with us. And a lot of times that people don't even feel the inflammation until it's gone, and then they retest and they put, the food items back in, and then they are like, oh wow, I really feel a difference. And this is just a great test for the people that are outside the box where lab testing hasn't given them any answers, and also for people that are wanting to do, preventative medicine. Feel good now, make the changes, and then just see how amazing you can feel with your energy and your sleep and mood, etc. So this is the food sensitivity test. As I say, love it. I think it should be first line for everyone, and it makes a huge difference in how people feel. Not only their digestive health, but mood, sleep, energy, joint pain, etc. It's one of those things that's amazing. So definitely consider it and talk to your naturopath about getting it. And if this is something that you're thinking of, absolutely let me know. Visit my website, drknaturopath.com, and we can definitely discuss more about this. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.